We have heard about big plans of Greenergy in developing next-generation data centers. Obviously, greener, sustainable, more efficient are the keywords. We have also heard the view from the investor side, from Randolph and Beata just now, and the impact this investment has on the whole CEE and 3Cs region. But when there's an A, there has to be a B. When we talk about data, we need to talk about data security. And for this, who better than the guest we have invited here today, for a nice digital fireside chat, Mr. Juhan Lepassaar, the Executive Director of the European Union Agency for Cybersecurity, and of course an Estonian. So to make it a truly nice discussion, Üllar will join us also, and I will ask you a few questions. I will address them to both of you or to each of you, and then you can choose who would like to answer. And as my first question for the introduction, let's start off talking about clouds. We all know data is in the cloud. Everything we have in our computers, even in our fridges, in our smartphones, soon in our self-driving cars, usually stored in the cloud. But when we say it's stored in the cloud, what do we actually mean? When is it in the cloud, then where actually it is? Johan, can you elaborate a bit?
Thank you very much for inviting me first, and I hope that you will hear me fine because I'm competing on the bandwidth with my daughter who is now actually homeschooling.
We hear you well.
Good. I think the issue of understanding the cloud better and what it entails and what kind of risks it entails is very important, because as cloud computing becomes ever more important for the functioning of the single market and the data market in Europe, it also becomes more attractive as a target. And what we have seen also from the threat landscape reports that the Agency for Cybersecurity for the EU has produced every year is that though still misconfiguration of cloud resources is the number one cause for cloud attacks, we have seen also that attacks increasingly aim directly at the cloud service providers. And there it is important that we understand what are the baselines in order to ensure that data that is stored or processed in the clouds is secure. For this, the EU Agency for Cybersecurity is now developing a European certification schemes for cloud service providers in order to provide increased assurance to businesses, public administrations, but also citizens, that their data is secure whenever and however it is processed or stored in the cloud. Not all data, of course, is at the same level of importance, but we need to make sure that the most critical data sets are well secured. And when it also comes to the future developments like the AI, ENISA has just produced a new threat landscape report that will be published soon on the AI. And of course, securing data around the artificial intelligence is again a very key importance, because cloud will play an important role in this. The certification scheme will hopefully provide a good backbone. We are talking about, in the age of pandemic, also about health data, and this is another crucial topic where the agency will help. Soon we will publish recommendation on cloud security for healthcare services. Cloud integration in the healthcare sector is still in its infancy in the EU, but of course it is growing in importance, and I think that's another field where the agency will try to help.
Aitäh, Johan. And do we think Estonians are leading the way in this? What do you think, Üllar?
Well, what I heard is there is a lot of already headache for those who are the cloud service providers. And I think data center infrastructure investment companies like we must make sure that they have less problems to worry about, at least the physical security, supply security, also the efficiency, and those already provided by the professional data centers then enable the cloud providers actually focus more on those aspects that was just mentioned by Johan. And also where the data are, if they are in the cloud, they are somewhere on the other side of the trust. You trust someone to keep them for you, and you trust that it's done professionally, done with the all kinds of care. And we just believe that in the next 10 years, the aspects of the security and the aspects of the physical location will also be supported by the other, how they actually use them, how they actually make their footprint on the ecology as well. We make those three things put together. Data will be at the very trusted hands, but those trusted hands must have an abilities to serve.
Absolutely. I think trust is a crucial concept in any digital government service and has to be there with cybersecurity. But actually, this leads me to my next question to you, Üllar. Can you open up a bit? What's the philosophy behind the concept that the Greenergy is developing? It's not just another data center, right? We already understood that. But what is it? What's the philosophy?
I think the specifics of this region, what we are targeting is that we all have some common history and some legacy systems, and the deficit and the lack of the investments made and the numbers announced by the fund itself actually enormous. But inside the EU, we have a freedom of capital move and trade move, and it would be very nice to support with the digital infrastructure based on the smart connectivity concept, that was actually also launched just a few months ago here at the 3C Summit. It means whether it's e-custom or it's e-prescription or it's e-school, doesn't matter. All those data are actually protected and managed in the same principles, and we really have the smooth connectivity of the services. If you start with your electric car to drive it towards the Adriatic Sea, you make sure that actually you can charge it everywhere, and electricity security as well. If you talk about the prosumer market growing in this region, where the small and smaller renewable producers are also part of the consumption and part of the production, it all needs a very secure data layer. But interoperability is key word of that. Building this future chain of the data networks, we believe that we can offer a common standard for any operator cross-border. We would like to make the cross-border easier, making the service standard understood at every moment.
Absolutely, and for that we of course need the data to move freely across the single market as well, right? Like you mentioned with other core freedoms of the EU. Thank you so much. But Johan, you at ENISA are the one who is responsible for the big picture, if I may call it so. How do ensure data security, and what are the big mega trends here? Every year we hear about new trends, blockchain, etc. What do you think, what are the mega trends and what are the biggest challenges connected to those trends?
And one of the trends that I mentioned as well is that what we have observed is that finely targeted and persistent attacks on high-value data are becoming more prevalent. And one of the challenges connected with it is, of course, that the attack vectors are ever evolving, ever becoming increasingly more complex. And if you look at the vulnerability side, then of course they use the existing vulnerabilities in the legacy systems most. The biggest cyber attacks that have occurred cross-border in Europe over the past 5 years have all exploited vulnerabilities in legacy systems. So that means that there is when the risk side is complex, also the mitigating efforts need to be quite well thought through and have to go through in different levels. So of course, the first is we need to have a common understanding of the threats. We need to have an understanding of how to measure these threats and how to assess their risks in a similar fashion. We also need to a better understanding of the level of resilience that we have across different sectors in Europe as well. And hopefully there, again, the agency can help everybody by starting to work on this next year and starting to develop a concept for a European cybersecurity index. The second issue, of course, is that we need to use all our tools in the policy framework. And I think the good work that has been undertaken by the member states and the Commission together with ENISA on the 5G shows that when we have a clear goal in mind, how to secure in the future the 5G, then we also can use the policy framework in a very efficient manner. And the same goes for the AI. But this is something that also can be used across different sectors and also for digital service providers like the cloud service providers. And finally, of course, we need to have a common approach in building capacities. And this common approach means that it needs to involve not only public sector players and authorities, but also the private sector more and more. So this is where I think our efforts should concentrate in the coming years in order to, let's say, keep Europe cybersecure and resilient also in the course of changing technological landscape.
Thank you so much. Yeah, resilience, security by design, joint efforts, public-private partnerships absolutely are the keywords. But I refer to now one of the newer keywords because data security is of highest importance, of course. It is the cornerstone of smart connectivity as well. But all the states are doing enormous efforts to nudge the world and businesses towards more sustainable, greener, responsible action. How's that relevant in developing data centers? And I hope it is. Üllar, what do you think? Is sustainability important when we talk about developing data centers?
No doubt, definitely it is. EU member states of the TRIS initiative, also members of the EU, the Green Deal arrangement and all other documents and frameworks adopted are showing only one direction, one way to go there. And I think Greenergy Data Centers in that sense feels the responsibility being one of the first focused data center developers in this region to show the way how it should be done. But also we feel responsibility starting here from Estonia to actually promote among those data center customers the other fundamentals of the digital society like digital ID or digital data exchange layer, what currently, for example, Estonia and Finland already so well using called as X-Road, but there are many countries more joining that already. I think this interoperability of the data exchange, where the trust is shared on the same common standards, the absolutely secure ADAS regulated ID, I think those will be the ecosystem elements what we as a Greenergy Data Center will feel responsible also to promote among our customer bases and make the ecosystem of the competencies there as well. And if those operations will be efficient by themselves, and they can also enjoy the efficient data center by energy use, I think that's a combination. I think even more efficiency will be found outside of data center by using those data than inside, but we do the best at least in data center, we are the best in class. And there is also a new trend that the waste heat, what the energy is produced in these data centers, finds more and more ways to be reused as well, whether it's municipal heating of the apartments or it's some agricultural projects. We also are keeping an eye on those developments and we'll see how to make maybe us one day carbon neutral for our customers.
Carbon neutral, that would be amazing. Thank you. Johan, has the word sustainability reached Enisa?
Yes, it has. And perhaps the link between cybersecurity and sustainability is not as evident. But just recently, the advisory group of Enisa and our management board discussed this issue. And I'll just bring you one example. I don't know to what extent it is applicable to data service providers or cloud service providers, but there is a big push from the cybersecurity community to use security by design or security by default approaches in all ICT products and services that are circulating in the internal markets. Now, why this is important from the point of view of sustainability, because if you buy a product that cannot be patched or cannot be upgraded in terms of its cybersecurity features, that means that you need to buy a new product. You also need to manufacture a new product. And that, of course, takes energy. That takes resources. Some of these resources might be possible to recycle, but some of these might be new. So having a security by design or security by default approaches embedded into the whole life cycle of a product or a service is not only good from the point of view of cybersecurity and protecting one's data or valuable data which is restored or processed in this product or service, it also makes good sense from the point of view of sustainability and trying to move our economy towards more greener future. So indeed, these two concepts are interlinked, and we try to play our part in order to make sure that the cybersecurity will play a role in making Europe also more sustainable.
Thank you. So hopefully Enisa will not only promote the security by design, but also sustainable by design, right? But now
Indeed.
I have hijacked a lot of time for my own questions. We have received some of the questions from the audience as well. And to keep things a bit more interactive, I will still have to read them out myself, but at least they're questions from the audience. So firstly, what is being asked is that data centers are built over time in the 3 Seas region. How those data centers planned by Greenergy differ from others, and who will be using them? And I guess that's a question for you, Üllar.
Yes, by the function, it's the same function, definitely, but it starts from the every smallest aspect of designing and the plan, putting together the development plan from the data center. It starts from location, it starts from the systems, what we're going to implement there. There has been a lot of innovation going on in the cooling systems and the electricity management automation system as well during the last 5 years. And we make just sure that the best available innovations on the technology-wise are going to be used there. And we would like to be the as a key partner for the technology producers to try with us those things and to be on the front line of implementing those, whether the service cooled on the liquid or whether there are energy waste use projects. We must make sure that one of the key numbers in this industry, like power utilization efficiency, we keep to the best possible standard. That this is our difference.
Okay, makes sense. Thank you so much. And next question. Johan, I will address this to you, but this maybe is more related to your previous role as the head of cabinet of Vice President Ansip, as it's related to more digital projects. But the audience asks, I understand we need the free and secure flow of data and data centers to make that happen. But what should be our priorities to really kickstart the digital economy in the CEE region?
Well, the Commission has announced actually a cloud strategy, which is, I think, something that connects very well with the topic at hand today. How to securely and safely create big data sets in order to, for example, train services that are based on artificial intelligence. This is something that can be also developed only layer by layer and step by step. And we, I think, discussed also the way of how to exchange data securely. And there, Estonia and Finland have already a model in place, which would be underlying this. So looking at the future developments of how this region will play a role in developing secure and trustworthy artificial intelligence in different areas, perhaps in public administration, but others as well. What kind of infrastructure do we need for this? What kind of baselines should be set, regulatory terms, policy terms? I think this is something that one should look into. And as far as I know, most of these regions already have a national AI strategy in place. Perhaps it would also be useful to build one for a wider region.
Okay, thank you so much. And one last question from the audience. But as we're a bit time constrained, then I will ask you, each of you, to answer in 5 words. So listen to the question carefully. The 3 Seas Initiative Investment Fund is doing a great job, but this won't be enough to materialize the smart connectivity vision presented in Tallinn this fall. So how can we make this really work? The smart connectivity vision, in 5 words, how can we make the smart connectivity vision really work? Johan, you go first.
Research, innovation, application, dialogue, and trust.
Research, innovation, application, dialogue, and trust. Amazing. Somebody write that down. That's going to be the future. Üllar, you?
I would add to this very wise words also positive peer pressure with green data.
Okay, I love the green word and positive peer pressure as well. Thank you so much, both. So that's it with the questions for now. And dear listeners online, dear journalists, thank you, Johan, so much for joining us online. Thank you, Üllar. Thanks for everyone's attention for the last 30 minutes or so. And I really hope these have been inspiring moments and you see more investments like the ones we were just talking about to occur. We all know the famous phrase said 51 years ago. That's one small step for a man, one giant leap for mankind. Today we are in the situation where I can paraphrase this in a different scale. Launching the Greenergy Data Center investment is a big step for the company, as it is a giant leap for the whole 3Cs initiative and for the whole region. We heard today how Greenergy Data Centers is acquiring the data center development project near Tallinn, near quite where we are, I think, with an ambitious plan to develop a network of green data centers in Central and Eastern European countries. The ambition of Greenergy Data Center is no lower than to create a network of sustainable, energy-efficient, secure data centers in the CEE countries, forming the 3Cs initiative. But as I just said, it's more than just an investment. This is a real step towards presenting the viability of the whole 3Cs region and the initiative that brings together 12 CEE countries, driving the European Union's economic growth. This is a region of great potential, and this first investment into the digital infrastructure demonstrates that this potential is not only theoretical, not only on paper, it can be turned into real business cases and scaled to the whole region. Once again, aitäh! Thank you for listening. Have a nice day, everyone here and across the world where you were looking at us. Thank you and goodbye.